Some say it's all about 1925 and beyond. The podcast. KC 100 year celebration with Pete A. Kennedy and Marlon A. Kennedy.
Welcome. It's another episode of the 1925 and Beyond podcast. I am here, one of your co-hosts, Pete A. Kennedy, and I'm here with big brother Marlon A. Kennedy and another special, I would say this one is iconic. But you know, I don't say who the guest is. I just introduce, do the credit. But let's drop the credit. I went to Kingston College between the years of 1992 to 1995. Played Colts 93, 94, 194, moved on to Manning Cup, and then the rest was history. But let me not waste no time. Let me give it over to big brother Marlon A. Kennedy, who's going to talk about our guest today.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome to another session of 1925 and Beyond podcast. As Pete said, also a KC old boy. You can see from our colors here. But I went to KC from 1986 to 1993, and I played cricket at all levels and captain at all levels as well. Indeed, it's a pleasure to have one of our guests today, a highly sought after guest, highly recommended guest. It's one of our guests that when Pete and I speak of what we do at KC, it's minute in comparison to the achievements that we have with our guest here. Yes. And our guest today is such a special guest. And today we're happy to have Dr. Tony Keys. Welcome, Dr. Keys. How are you?
Welcome, Doc.
I'm fine, thanks, and thanks for having me, both Kennedy brothers. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc. So, in true fashion of the podcast, Doc, we ask our guests to tell us their story, to start from the point of, before KC, where they grew up, siblings, family life, and all of that, and this transition into going to KC.
Okay, well, I have a story for you, and this is a story that most people don't know, but it's a very interesting story.
Okay.
So after 10 months old, I was, sent to live with my grandmother, who lived at 75 Constant Spring Road, which was right beside Murray Grove High School. I don't know if you're familiar with Constant Spring Road and
Yes.
So Murray Grove High School, I lived right beside Murray Grove High School.
There were apartments then back then?
No, it was family homes. It was nothing like this today. Nothing. It was greenery, trees, mango trees, in excess of mango trees, lawns, that kind of thing. Okay.
Yes.
So I started living with my grandmother at 10 months old, and it just so happened that the founder and the headmistress for Murray Grove High School was my godmother. So my early childhood development, on my early childhood education, prep school, elementary, primary school, was at Murray Grove High School. So when I sat for the common entrance exam, I really wanted to go to Calabar, which was less than, I'm sorry about that, but it was
That's
less
all
than,
right.
it was
We
less,
normally
it
react
was,
that way when we hear it.
it was less than, you have to hear the story. It was less than, Calabar was less than 2 miles from where I lived at, okay? So all of my early childhood days I spent going over to Calabar, playing on the, soccer fields, football fields, cricket. And then the thing was, Calabar had a pool. It was the only one of the 2 high schools in the corporate area that had a swimming pool. So as a little kid, that was way beyond fun, okay? It was way beyond fun. So I went to high school, I went to prep school, primary school, everything at Murray Grove, took the scholarship exam and passed it, wanted to go to St. George's or Calabar, but I was kept at Murray Grove, okay? So the first year of my scholarship, I went to Murray Grove. Now, Murray Grove at the time was a co-ed school.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If you had, say, 100 students at the school, about 25 of them were male students. The rest were girls. Okay. So at the end of 1959, starting in 1960, there was a transition being made by the Ministry of Education in which Murray Grove was going to be turned over to be a fully girls' school. Okay. So all the male students were sent to other schools, mainly Calabar. One guy went to Kingston Technical, and I think one guy went to Excelsior. The gentleman who was in charge of making the transition, sending the kids to different schools, he was a KC old boy. He was a parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Education. His name was H. Ross Murray. So when he got to my name and started speaking to the headmistress, whose name was Miriam Speed. She told him that I was a very precocious little fella, you know. I played sports, cricket, football, ran track. And I also sang in a choir. I was a tenor in a choir. Well, that piqued his interest because Casey had the best choir in the world at that time.
Yes, yes.
And along with the sporting accolades, he was more interested in the choir part of it, you know. So he said he sings in the choir. So the headmistress says yes. So he said, okay, I'm going to send you down to KC to meet Mr. Douglas Fortis for you to have an audition with him. So it was like about 2 days after he had spoken to me and my parents, you know. So I went down to KC, met Mr. Fortis. Mr. Fortis took me to the chapel. He got on the organ. He started playing, running up the scales. I had to run up the scales with him, you know. Then he played a hymn from one of the hymnals, and I, you know, sang along with him. So when we were finished, he sat there for a while, and it was silence for, you know, it seemed like forever. And then he said, young man, welcome to Kingston College. Man, that blew my mind. That was, I mean, it sent goosebumps. I'm still
Yeah.
feeling goosebumps right now, but it sent goosebumps all over me because it was, you know, it was something else, you know. So I ran home, you know, jumped on the dormitory, the bus, you know, and went back home and told my parents. And I grew up in a home with my grandmother at the time, you know, all my siblings had gone and I was the only child in the home. So, you know, everything revolved around me, you know. So this was in 1960. I went to KC. So you know, I auditioned with Mr. Fortis. It was the first term, going on to the second term, and he said, "Okay, you start next week Monday." So everything was, you know, a real rush thing. So I started school. A lot of trepidation when I walked through 2A North Street for the first time. You know, didn't know what to expect. Was, you know, but I was just really excited, you know, and anxious, you know. So I started school in 1960 in second form.
Okay, I was gonna ask. Okay.
Yeah, I started in form 2E. And 2E was one of the smartest forms. It was 2A, 2B, and then 2E was one of the smartest forms in the school, you know. And when I started and when I went to school for the first couple of days, it was surreal because
Doc, one second there, Doc. You said you
Sure.
started with 2B or 2E?
2E.
2E.
E as in
okay.
Ezra.
Yes.
So you were so based on how they alternate the letters,
Yes.
what were you doing? French or Spanish?
Spanish.
Spanish. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Spanish and Latin.
Okay.
Those are the languages. Yes. So I started out in form 2E. The first week I went to school, first 2 days, you know, one of the guys approached me. His name was Errol Lane, call him Whiskey. He approached me and said, do you play cricket? Because this was the cricket term. And I said, yeah, I play cricket because at one time I thought I was a better cricket player than a soccer player when I was a little kid, you know?
Yeah.
So I said, yes, I played cricket. And then at that time, farm cricket was a big thing, you know? So we were playing 2A on a Tuesday. And 2A had, you know, some guys who were playing on the Colts team at the time, you know, pace bowlers and stuff like that. And I was in 2E. So I opened for 2E. And I was batting and they couldn't get me out. So there was a gentleman named Mr. Seeley. He was a Latin teacher and he was from Barbados. He was a very good cricketer from Barbados. And he was sitting in the pavilion and he was watching me bat. And then he walked across to me and said, young man, we have a game, a coach game on Friday. What's your name? I gave him my name. He said, bring your whites. And, you know, that kind of startled me because I'm saying, whoa, I'm on the KC coach team to play cricket. I don't know anybody on the team at that time. Didn't know a soul except the one guy who was in my class, and he was a scorer for the team. So I had to hurry home and tell my parents, you know, I needed, you know, some whites.
Some whites, yeah.
My father was an old-time cricketer. He played parish cricket for Portland. So, you know, he was excited too. So we went down to King Street, got some white clothes, white shoes and stuff, you know. So I didn't know anybody on the team, like I said, and nobody knew me. So usually on a Friday before we played cricket games on Fridays or Saturdays, the teams were read out in the chapel. So when they read my name, and my government name is Kenneth, when they said Kenneth Keys, nobody knew who it was.
Yes.
So hey, I went in as an anonymous player, you know. But anyway, the first game we played against JC, and we played a game. I scored 19 not out. We won the game, and then it was a trajectory going up after that, you know. Long story short, we won Colts in that year. The final game was against St. George's at Emmett Park, and again, I was not out. I think it was 16, and we won the trophy, you know. So here it is now. I'm excited now. Playing cricket, Colts cricket for KC. Colts is over. So I'm playing football now for KC. I'm playing Colts football. I started out playing at outside left. Usually I used to play center forward, but I started out playing at outside left. And we had a very good Colts team. We didn't win the competition, but I think we came runners up because we had a good team. Jumpy Harris played at the time too. The kid in my class whose name was Whiskey Lane. As a matter of fact, Whiskey Lane, if you know a lot of people who from my generation, they tell you that when you compare Whiskey to Skill Cole, the comparisons very, very, very few and in between. Okay. So yeah, so I tried out for the Colts team, and I made a Colts team. The next year now, I wanted to make the Sunlight team. So I went to practice, and we used to practice down by the basketball court.
Yeah.
There was a concrete pitch down there, and we used to practice on that. Now, Casey had a guy named Cyril Buchanan who was the all-school pace bowler at the time. And I was batting, and he bowled one to me, and I played forward, and ball lifted, hit me in the sternum, the diaphragm, knocked the wind out of me. And the next thing I know, they was throwing water on me to wake me up, you know. So, I was out cold. Well, after that blow, cricket was not in my
Yeah, I was gonna say.
scheme of things anymore. Never picked up a bat or a ball again until when I went to school at Michigan State, and there was a little Jamaican cricket team in Detroit, and I played for them. I ended up playing for them. But no, I didn't play cricket anymore. So in 1960, I ended up playing Colts cricket. Colts football, and then in 1961, I transitioned to track. Okay. Now my first year on the track team, in class 2, I was running pretty good prior to champs, but I had an injury.
Doc, I don't mean to cut you,
Mhm.
because as I listen to the journey, right, you sang your way into KC, you played your way onto the actual Colts cricket team.
Yes.
So before you tell us how you performed that track, tell us, how did you get to track?
Well, I used to run track. I used to run track at Murgrove also. When I was in class 3, I ran in class 2 because it was very few boys going to Murgrove, and I had to run in a higher class just to go to champs. So that's how I got involved with track. Okay. Wasn't a track star, wasn't a track. I just was a football player who could run fast.
Yes.
Okay, well, that was that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, the coach at the time at KC was a gentleman by the name of Sidney Burrows. Foggy Burrows was his name, and he had a magazine called Sport Life magazine that he wrote.
Yep.
I was, performing real good, but I had a terrible ankle injury, and it was shortly before champs, so I was injured. When champs came, I was severely injured. I couldn't run real good. In the heats, I came like about third. Didn't make it to the finals, semifinals, or anything like that. So my first year at KC in class 2 track, it was a bust. But in 1961, I was 15, and I was invited to turn out for the Manning Cup team. So I turned out. Lindy Headley was the captain of the team at the time, and I made the team at outside right. So I started playing Manning Cup football at 15 at outside right for KC, and that was one of the real highlights of my life right there, because Manning Cup was the thing, So I played in the 61 year, and I played pretty good. As a matter of fact, I made the All Manning All Schools team, but yeah, in the all schools team went to Haiti to play in some games in Haiti. But they left me at home because the word was that since I was so young and at 15, the outside right for St. George's, whose name was Trevor Summers at the time, they figured he was getting ready to graduate from George's. So, send him and, I have more years to play.
Yeah.
That didn't sit well with Foggy Barras or, people in who used to write articles and,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
kind of mentioned that, But that was in 1961, played then 60. So I started running track now and playing soccer. Okay. So my second year in class two, um, it was Lennox Miller, Dr. Lennox Miller, the Olympian, and myself was the two sprinters in class two. And we were supposed to come 1 and 2 in 100 yards, but I don't know what happened on that day, but there was a guy from a country school, Manchester High, who just won the event in 10.5. As a matter of fact, Miller ran 10.2 in his heats, and I ran 10.3. So, they were expecting,
Yeah.
1-2. But the dude, Livingston, he just came in and he won the race. Now, prior to that, Casey wanted me, the elders at Casey and the coaches said, well, look, you can run hurdles. And hurdles was something that I was scared of because I was afraid to fall over the hurdles, But they took me a week before champs, 8 days before champs. They took me down to KC on a weekend and every day, and I learned to hurdle in 8 days.
Wow.
And I went to champs in class two, and I won the hurdles, and I was 100th of a second outside of the record. So I became a hurdler then.
Yeah.
So before you continue, Doc,
Yeah.
you said that race that the Manchester runner
Yeah.
won.
What?
That meant you and Miller
Miller came second, I came
second and
third.
third.
Yes.
Okay.
Lennox Miller came second, I came third.
All right.
Yeah. So I won the hurdles. We won the 4x100 relay, and I was, they said, well, you're a hurdler now, So I had to go up to class one. Now, when I went up to class one, did hurdles in track. There was a guy who was at KC at the time called Raymond Harvey, who was one of Jamaica's top hurdler. And he was very, very, very good. So the both of us went to champs. He won, I came second. So they had me as a hurdler still. So I came second and ran on the sprint relay at the time. And the sprint relay team was a very good team. We were doing times that were comparable to times in the United States. And this was like when I went in class one. This was in 1963. Okay. So we wanted to go to pen relays at that time, but they wouldn't let us in from then because we were outside of the United States, and they weren't accepting any schools, high school, colleges, or anything from outside of the United States at the time. So went to champs, we won champs. As a matter of fact, in 1961, we started winning. That was when we started that 14-year run.
Yep.
So the next year I went to champs in class one. I came second in hurdles. I ran on the sprint relay team. Then the following year after that, I went again. I came second again in hurdles, but I got robbed in that race, believe you me. And I ran on the sprint relay team again, and the 100 yards. I didn't make it to the finals then either. My final year, this is all about track. My final year with track and field, went to champs again, came second again in the hurdles, came third in the 100 yards. Miller won the 100, and ran on the relay team. And the relay team comprised of Jimmy Grant, Rupert Hylett, Lennox Miller, and myself. And we were allowed then to participate in the pen relays at that time because a Canadian university was invited to participate then. So we had to draw the card on them and show them that, hey, somebody from outside the United States competed, so we could compete. So we were invited to go then, So that was my track experience.
How was it though? How was that first
Pen relay
trip to pen relays?
It was filled with excitement and it was also filled with anxiety because the times we were running, we knew that we could compete with any school at the time. It was just a matter of being in the United States, the big United States, competed in the most prestigious relays, pen relays, and that kind of thing. But as a matter of fact, at that time, we were almost like professionals because we could handle the stress for the most part. The only problem we had was the weather. We weren't accustomed to that cold weather. And then, you had to take your sweatsuits off long before you started running. And, it was very cold at that time. But it was something else because, the excitement, the crowd, the people, the rapidity with which they ran the races and that kind of thing, you had to be very focused about it.
Nice.
And so, that was really, really fun. Mhm.
What were the results like? Did you win any races, or how well did we place in the races that we participated in?
Okay, so the first year that we went to pen relays, we took a triple jumper with us. His name was Lennox Tuller. And then we took a 4x100 relay team and a 4x400 relay team. Okay, so we won our heats, and then with the 4x100 we won our heats. 4x400 we won the heats also, and we went into the finals for both relays. The 4x100 relay we ran and we won that relay. And in that relay, which the team comprised of Jimmy Grant starting to Rupert Hoyle at the second leg, I ran the third leg, and Miller finished. When Jimmy started, the handoff to Rupert, it was not very good. And when Rupert brought the baton to me, I got the baton in like about fourth place. And I had to cover some ground, and I just started passing people. And it was a good thing because when I hand off the baton to Lennox Miller, I gave him like about 5 to 7, 8 meters lead. And he was able to hang on to that lead because 10 meters out from the tape, he pulled up. He pulled up, his hamstring went, busted, boom. And he grabbed onto his leg and hopped really, and everybody else was closing fast on him, and we won the relay then.
Whoa.
Lennox Miller was scheduled to run the 4x4, but being injured, he was not able to do that. So we were out of that relay. But we came back home with the 4x100 relay title and that kind of thing.
And that was the first time a Jamaican team was entering Pens relay, and it was a KC team, correct?
First time a Jamaican team, first time a team from anywhere else outside of the United States of America to ever compete in the pen relays.
And we got voted
pioneers. We were pioneers in that regard.
Excellent. And there's a bit of history in that as well, Doc, because we were told that because we were such pioneers coming out of the Caribbean, it's one of the reasons why the KC flag is the only flag that is flown at pen relays.
Yep.
Exactly.
Outside of the American flag.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, so make we hear the real juice and all that. We talk about the football part, That's are the tracks.
So football now. So like I said, football was my love. I did track because I could run fast. And as a result of that, I love football so much that the first juvenile football team for Jamaica that was ever put together, I was honored to be the captain of that team. This was in 1963. And they were preparing to go to Guatemala to play in the under-19 juvenile games then, So I was the captain then. I was looking forward to going to play. But then we got the call. The tournament was in 1964, the beginning of 1964. We got the call that we were going to the pen relays. And I had to make the choice, football or going to the pen relays. Now, I figured that I could have gone to playing football and then leaving from there and going to the pen relays. But Mr. Douglas Forrest, headmaster, called me in and said, look, man, this is something that is bigger than you. And this is something that KC can get to be a part of and set a precedent in, and we can take it from there. So my choice was, okay, even though I was a captain for the juvenile team, I had to give that up and we were going to pen release.
Okay.
But, how it turned out, things turn out
Yeah.
is that the team that went to Guatemala, they didn't do very well. And the team that went to pen release.
Yeah. Excellent.
So, that's
Bless
how
the
it went.
man,
So,
shot. Yeah.
I had a little bit, a little bit of something in my craw about not going to Guatemala, but I had to put that aside after pen relays, okay?
Yeah.
It was the same thing with the football. I was called out for the Jamaica team for the World Cup in 1966 World Cup. And in 64, they had called it out, but, 65, I had to go back to the pen relays, So then again, I could not play football because they were scared that I would get injured, So I had to
And that is where your love was, right? You were just a fast footballer.
yeah, that was it. So I put that aside. But for KC, the football experience was great. Like I said, I played Manning Cup for 4 years. I made all Manning and all schools for 4 years. I was the captain for the all schools team in 1964 when we played against the Brazilian team, which there was a Brazilian team that was touring the Caribbean at the time. And the coach at the time, national coach in Jamaica, was a Brazilian, and he liked the way KC was playing the football because in 1964 we were arguably the best football team in the island. Really, there was no team that could beat us, no major league team, no school
I heard.
team,
Yeah.
nobody. Okay, and the
Yeah.
kind of football that we were playing was very attractive football. Okay, George Thompson was the coach at the time.
Yeah.
And so therefore, the national coach wanted this Brazilian team to play against KC. Now, this was an under-23 national team from Brazil, okay, from Sao Paulo, Brazil, who was coached by the national coach who coached Pele in 1958 in the Brazil's World Cup when Pele played, and in 1962 when Pele played and scored, and they won the World Cup again. So this coach coached Brazil in 2 World Cups, and they were winners. And he was the coach of the team. So, it's big football, okay? And KC was fortunate to be chosen as the team to play in that session there. And that was a big, big thing because even though during the Manning Cup season we scored like about 45 goals and 4 goals were scored against us, we were playing against a Brazilian team that were playing against national teams in the Caribbean like El Salvador, Haiti, Cuba, and they were just, giving love, 7 love, 8 love, 9 love on the national teams of those countries. So they were coming to play a schoolboy team.
Schoolboys, yeah.
And all I could hear from everybody in Jamaica, including my KC brethren, is Tony, boy, if you can just hold it down to about 7 or 8, that's gonna be a good thing. Nobody had the confidence. For real, this is true. Nobody had the confidence in us because these guys were, was doing damage on national teams. And Jamaica national team could beat Haiti at that time. And this Brazilian team gave Haiti 7-0, Anyway, the day when the Brazilian team came to the island and they had their first warm-up session up at the stadium, it was like the stadium was full.
Full, like a
Everybody
match.
wanted to see these Brazilians, yeah. And of course, the Brazilians showed up, the juggling, the bicycle kicking, the this, the that, And I heard more, Tony, if we can keep it to 10, that would be good.
Gone from 7 to 10.
Yeah. So on the day of the game, when
before you go, where was this played, Tony?
okay, this was played at the National Stadium.
Stadium,
Yeah.
okay.
And the stadium was built in 1962.
Mm-hmm.
And this is in December 1964.
So this would have been the biggest match in the stadium up to that point.
Yeah, this is the first time the stadium was sold out completely to the point where they had to put chairs on the cycle track all the way around to accommodate the crowd. Okay? So when our bus pulled up to the stadium, we couldn't get into the stadium because of the massive of people and cars and country buses and everything, because everybody wanted to see Brazilian team play. It's the first time a Brazilian team was coming to Jamaica. Man, when we got to the stadium, a couple players on my team, I'm not gonna call any names, but it's like diarrhea. I had to go to the bathroom.
Nervousness.
Thing. I mean, the anxiety, the fear, you could see it in some of the players' eyes, you know. And I was really worried. So, you know, I had to call my team together and say, look, man, all of these Brazilians, they put their boots on one at a time, just like us, put their shorts on one foot at a time, just like us. We're going to go out there, we're going to play the football that we know to play, and we're going to leave it at that and see what happens. So, man, when we got out and the stadium massive made a roar, I mean, wow, you know. Anyway, the game started and we were playing pretty good at the time. I got a little early chance there and I was so anxious to kick it that I kicked the ball and the ball hit the ground, bounced to the goalkeeper and didn't score. But Brazil scored a goal, and then shortly after that, we scored, and I was able to score that goal. Lad McLean and myself, we worked up a little thing, and I scored a goal. So it was 1-1. So shortly before halftime, my center half handled the ball, and they got a penalty. So we went in at halftime at 2-1. And when we came over the second half, we were playing even Steven with them until close to the end. They scored another goal, so it ended at 3-1. Okay? So the Brazilian team, the national under 23 team, beat KC 3-1. So we had an invitational all-school team that included 9 KC players, and we brought in 3 other players. Dennis Zadie from St. George's, Steve Buckner, who at the time was the goalkeeper for Cornwall College, the renowned Steve Buckner, the umpire.
Yeah.
The greatest Jamaican umpire. And John Simmons, who at the time was playing at Excelsior. He ended up being a big lieutenant.
Yeah, chief of staff for the JDF. Yeah,
That's right.
Simmons. Yeah.
That's right. So we brought in those 3 players with 9 KC, and we had 9 KC players. So Buckner and our goalkeeper, they shared the goal in first and second half. Zadie played, and John Simmons played. So we played this Brazilian team, and we played them tooth and nail. They scored a goal, and then we came back and we scored a goal. I scored a very brilliant goal, and it was 1-1. And we were putting on the pressure on them, and towards the end of the game, we had a real nice build-up. Neville Oxford ran down the wing. He put the ball back, and then he took a shot, and the ball went inside the goal, hit it upright, and came back out. So the Brazilian team was holding on for dear life, as it were. So the game ended 1-1, and it couldn't be no better than that.
Yeah.
But before you go on, Tony, because Neville tell me that story too,
Yeah.
And say, boy, I don't remember who him said, but somebody said at the end of the game, somebody come to him and squeeze him and say, boy, Neville, you get the chance to create history in Jamaica.
Yes.
Yeah, dash it way.
No, I wouldn't call it a dasher because it was a very good shot, and it just went and it just hit the inside of the upright and came out, as it were,
Yeah, man. But Neville, when we talk to Neville about it after, Neville said if him get that chance at 10 times, he must score 9, and him know, he missed a one.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Because as a matter of fact, when he took the shot and it was going in, I started to walk away already. I started to jump and walk away already because I knew it was going to be a goal, But that was an experience. The Brazilian coach, he commended George Thompson and his team, and he said that what George Thompson should do is try to keep these group of boys together, and if he did, he showed Jamaica would have a very good team. And the coach singled me out, and I was very, very honored for that, because this is a man who coached Pele, and in my time it was all about Pele,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So football was my thing. And like I said, football made me meet a lot of people, took me a lot of places, and it made me get a scholarship to go to the United States because I was the first Jamaican schoolboy soccer player to be offered a scholarship to a Division I school in the United States to play soccer. When I was getting ready to leave KC, I was encouraged to go to England to try, try out my skills in England, but I didn't like England really, it did not appeal to
Before
me.
and before you continue there, Tony.
Uh-huh.
So there's an important piece, you kind of muddle over it a little bit, but I don't want to leave that out.
Okay.
So the great teams of 64 and 65, Tony.
Yes.
Walk us through that piece of your story now.
Okay.
Because I know Neville give us a piece of it, but we want to hear from you because they spoke about all the players, they spoke about your leadership as well as a captain. But talk to us about that team because I know similar to how you said that it was the same set of guys coming from Colts days.
Yes.
So what was it like now, 64, 65 playing Manning Cup?
Okay. Well, so in at the end of 1963, it was the Walker Cup competition, and we won that Walker Cup. Okay, that was the first time we ever won a Walker Cup, and so we transitioned now to a new coach at the end of 63. The coach at the time was a man called Mr. Parchment, Trevor Parchment.
Yeah.
And so we transitioned now. George Thompson decided to come back home to his alma mater and to coach the team. And we were excited because George Thompson was, a very well-renowned coach. So he came, and that summer while we were preparing for our campaign for the season, we started putting the team together. And it was ironic because, my best friend and my partner, striping partner, Jumpy Harris, wasn't playing any football at the time. He had played a Walker Cup because I'd gone and asked him to come and play. But, he had a falling out with the sports master, Mr. Parchment. And as a result of that, he didn't turn out for any of the Manning Cup teams. But he played in the Walker Cup and he scored some goals. And, I asked him to come back since George Thompson was going to be the coach now and play Manning Cup. And that summer, we started training, and the training was great because we enjoyed the training. Every day we look forward to going to training. People showed up before time, earlier than time, because it was so exciting. It was something new. Mr. Thompson brought a whole lot of new innovative ideas into the football, which made the football attractive and enjoyable. So nobody missed practice. Everybody came every day before time, on time. As a matter of fact, a little hurricane was coming through during that summer at the time. And, hey, everybody showed up before time, on time to practice and played through the rain and everything, So we put the team together. There were some players who were kept over from the previous Manning Cup team, like Dennis Johnson, Dr. Dennis Johnson. There was Lyle McLean. That's basically myself. And there was nobody else from the prior team. Jumpy, who played in the Walker Cup, just before that. So we had new players who came in. We had a guy named Ozzie Bailey, who was the goalkeeper. We had Baldwin Fisher, who, as a matter of fact, he played Manning Cup for KC when he was 14 as a goalkeeper. But now he was playing center half. We brought him in, he was playing center half. There was Frank Bowler-Morant, who was the other center half. There was the late Dr. Winston Davidson, who played left fullback. And in the midfield, we had Lyle McLean, who was one of the greatest schoolboy midfielder Jamaica has ever seen. The son of Clovis McLean. And we had him in midfield, and we had Mouse Brown, Michael Vernon as the other midfielder. Then the forwards was Neville Oxford outside right. There was Trevor Harris, there was myself, and there was Noel Miller at outside left. And this team, during the summer, we played every senior division, every major league team. We beat every one of them. At that time, a team called YMCA was the best senior league team because they had about 5, 6 Jamaican national team players. But when we played them, we still gave them love, And so our confidence was really, really high. And we went through the training period campaign up to the 64 season, knowing that, hey, we only us can beat us. You know what I'm saying? So we went into the Manning Cup season, and it was very successful. like I said, we won all our games. We scored 44 goals. There were 4 goals scored against us, and we played the most attractive football that was ever played. Now, we had one match that was like a little snafu. We played against JC, and JC, was used to win Manning Cup, every year, just about, So we were playing JC, and they were one of the favorites to win the game. I don't know why they chose them to win the game, but they scored early in the game, and not only that, shortly after that, they hit the crossbar again. They scored against us, hit the crossbar, and the whole stadium was there. Yeah, see there. I tell you now, KC, blah, 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 And I just say, all right. I just called my team together, and I said, yo, listen, man, brave me, God will never yield. So we gonna take this, okay? I just say, look, each man, one man. Now, in that time, when you call somebody a man, it was it was not a very good term to use.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So each man, one man, and we're not gonna lose this game. And we start to pile the goals on now. So we scored 1, 2, 3, 4, getting ready to score 5, and they turned the light off at the stadium on us. Yes, sir. I don't know who did it, but they turned the light off. Everybody had to leave the stadium, postpone the game, so we had to play the game at a later time.
I say we hear some stuff, but with this one beat everything.
Yes.
Turn off the light back, you see.
Turn off the light, sabotage the game.
Oh man.
Yeah. So, but we played them again after that, and we beat them 3-0, I think, But yeah, so the 64 team was really a nascent team, but it was a very good team. Very good. We played very attractive football. And everybody liked the way we play. As a matter of fact, now, it's still argument whether the 64, 65 team was the 2 best teams that ever played Manning Cup or not, And
That's what we heard.
the only thing I pointed to that is that, hey, we played Brazil. Ain't no other schoolboy team in the island ever played Brazil.
Yeah.
At no point in time, So that was it. So in 65 now, Dennis Johnson was the captain because I left KC in 65 after Penn relays. And I'd gotten scholarship to play football since football was my thing, When I left KC after taking advanced GC, I got the scholarship and I left Jamaica shortly after that in August to go, take up my scholarship. So I didn't get a chance to stay after graduation from KC to play football for Jamaica or, I played football for Melbourne Club, before that, it was a club before KC bought it, over there. And yeah.
Didn't never play for Melbourne as well?
No, he played for Cavaliers.
Cavaliers, sorry.
He played for Cavaliers. Yes.
You're right. That's what he did say.
So, the 65 team went on to, score, I think, 60-something goals, and I don't remember how many against. And, hey, they didn't, nobody could beat them either, Yeah. But in my 64 experience, Jumpy Harris and myself, we developed such a chemistry. The entire forward line, never Jumpy myself. I mean, it was just chemistry flowing, And Jumpy and myself, we had such a good chemistry. He knew where I was at every time. I knew where he was.
Yeah.
We started this thing. Now you hear people talk about ticky-tacky. We call it tic-tac because at the time it was him and me, tic-tac, and we went through the middle, scored a bunch of goals that way. Never was on the wing. Never Marley Miller was on the other wing. And but the thing about the team was the chemistry, the camaraderie. We looked out for each other. We had each other's back. We just respected each other. We made sure each other was all right. Both at KC, on the field, at home, off the field, that kind of thing. So everybody became family. We shared everything just about with each other. And that was a good thing because it went a long way, and it set a little precedent as to this is how you function when you go to
Yeah.
Kingston College, you know, that kind of thing.
All right, so you can take us back now to, you know, when you left in 65.
Yes.
Tell us that story now about going overseas and your scholarship and all of that, where you went to and all of that.
Yeah, so let me tell you this. While I was at before I went to KC, while I was at Murgrove, you know, my schoolboy hero was Mauricio Ventura.
Ah,
Okay, he was my schoolboy hero. I went everywhere that he played cricket, football, or track. I went to watch him because I was just fascinated by this little guy who was so good, you know. Well, he went to school at Michigan State University a couple of years when he gotten a track scholarship to go to school there. He played track and football for KC too, you know, and cricket. But he had gotten a track scholarship to go to Michigan State. But when he went to Michigan State, a group of Africans and Jamaicans, they started having a little club and they started playing football. Football wasn't a varsity sport at the time. It wasn't an NCAA sanctioned sport at Michigan State at the time. But they went ahead and they had a little club and they were able to turn it into a varsity sport. Okay? So when it became a varsity sport, now it was part of the NCAA Division One thing. So Ventura, he was on the team. Would walk on and got the scholarship. And then a guy who played Manning Cup with me the first year I played Manning Cup, called Peyton Fuller, who was all schools outside left when he played in 1961. He went to school at Michigan State. He didn't get a scholarship at the time, but he went to school there and then was a walk-on and got a scholarship while he was at Michigan State. Okay. Yeah. So when I went to Michigan State now, Peyton Fuller came to Jamaica one summer and, you know, got back in touch with the coach at Michigan State and told him about me. And then we started corresponding and he was very interested in me and he was able to, you know, give me a scholarship, so on and so forth. So, so I got to Michigan State in 1965, in September 1965. And at that time, the NCAA rules were you couldn't play the first year you went to college. You had to sit out the first year, you had to maintain a C average before you were allowed to play on the varsity team. The varsity team is the first 11, you know. I sat out my first year, but in the first year we had, you know, friendly games against other universities and, you know, I was scoring a bunch of goals. You know, the first game I played, I scored like 7 goals. I scored, you know. So, as a freshman and from the first day I went to Michigan State, as a matter of fact, the first day I went to Michigan State and I was practicing with the team. The guys on the first team, the All-Americans, you know, I was giving them a hard time and, you know, it got kind of dirty. They couldn't handle me. So, you know, I started playing dirty and, you know, kind of ended up in a little fight. And the guy who I got in the fight with, he was the All-American captain of the team at the time. The thing about it is that after that fight, the same evening, we became friends and we turned out to be one of the best friends ever. Okay. And for a white boy, that was saying something, you know. But anyways, so the first day I was there and I played. After that, I was respected by every single soul. Okay. So my second year now, which is I was a sophomore, and this is the first year you can play in varsity. I played on the team, and I was the main goal scorer. I ended up scoring like about 22 goals. Had like a whole bunch of assists, made an All-American team, so on and so forth. So that was that. In my junior year, the next year, I got injured. So after my sophomore year now, at that time in the United States, Michigan State University was one of the top soccer teams, but they just couldn't win the national championship because there was a team named St. Louis University who used to give them a hard time. Now, St. Louis was the hotbed of soccer in the United States, and a lot of the players from St. Louis went to St. Louis University, and they had a very good team over the years. As a matter of fact, a lot of the national players for the United States went to St. Louis University. So after my first year playing for Michigan State, I went to my coach and I said, look, man, if you want to win this thing, you got to send to Jamaica and get the man who I used to play with beside me named Trevor Jumpy Harris. So you give him a scholarship, and if he comes here, I assure you, we are going to win this thing. Because Michigan State had a very good team. Most of the players we had were guys who were of, German ethnicity, Ukrainian, so on and so forth. So then they grew up playing football, so they were pretty good at it.
Mm.
But I told the coach, look, if you want to win this thing, you have to send for this man named John Harris, give him a scholarship, and you see what happened. So I came home to Jamaica and I asked Jumpy if he wanted to go to school. He was working in the bank at that time, and he said, "Yeah, sure, go to college, yeah." So he was given a scholarship, and he came up, joined me. He couldn't play the first year, but in the second year, his second year, which was my junior year, he played, and it was a good thing because I was injured for most of that season, and I tore a hamstring, and when it was getting better. Shortly after that, I ruptured my appendix. And so I was out for most of the season. I only played about 4 games in my second year. But it was a good thing Jumpy came because he started scoring all the goals for the team. And we got into the finals of the NCAA football. And we played the finals against St. Louis University. However, what happened is that in the final game, the weather conditions were so bad, it was snowing, players were falling and hurting themselves, and they stopped the game and gave the two teams co-championship titles. That was in 1967.
Mhm.
So in 1968, now, which was my senior year, I was the captain for the team, and I ended up scoring 28 goals for the season. Jumpy scored like about 12 goals, and then he got injured towards the end of the season there, and he was playing very sparingly. But he was able to play in the NCAA finals game. We played in the finals game, and we won the national championship playing against University of Maryland. Now, at that time, too, we had gotten 2 more scholarships for 2 more KC players to come to Michigan State, which was Franklin Bowler Morant and Leslie Lucas, who was a goalkeeper. So it was 4 Jamaicans on the team at one time. So when I was a captain for the team in '68 and we won the national championships, all 4 of us were playing on the team at that time. So we were trying to build up a little thing where we got Jamaicans to come up and come through the system, get a college education, so on and so forth. Because my thing was, I love football, but when I was playing for Jamaica and so on and so forth, I looked at it and said, well, hey, I needed an education because playing for Jamaica was not going to get me very far. Because in my days, you had to buy your own boots and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So, it wasn't like today, So I looked at education. So we were trying to get, as much people as we knew through the system, get a college degree so it can take you further. So there was 4 of us on the team. Then the following year, in 1969, we tried to get 5 people, Jamaicans, to come up on the team. And the 5 Jamaicans consisted of 2 KC players, Junior Higgins, Jerry Murray, 2 St. George's players, Lennox Robinson and the late Nigel Goodison, and 1 player from Wolmer's, which was Nick Dujan as a goalkeeper. And, they came then, they were part of the team. It was a Jamaican, Peyton, the same Peyton Fuller that I mentioned from KC. He was the coach of the team then.
Okay.
So so after '68 and '69, I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in zoology and psychology, and
Nice. Wow.
I was on a track to go to dental school at the time. I was in pre-dental things.
So where did you end up after that then? What did you do your masters in and so forth?
Okay, so I stayed at Michigan State and did masters in psychology. I had a double major, psychology and zoology, but I did my masters in psychology, and at the time I was finishing getting the necessary courses to go to dental school. Now, when I was at KC, Dr. Keith Young, who was a track athlete at KC, a hurdler, he did hurdles for KC in the 1950s. He used to coach me in hurdles at KC, and he was a dentist, graduated from Howard University, came back home, and one day I had a terrible toothache. I went to him, and like magic, didn't have a toothache again after that. So we started mentoring me, and I started looking towards dentistry. So I wasn't pre-dent. So after 2 years in grad school, I got married, started a family and everything, got admitted to dental school at Howard. So I moved from Michigan to Washington, D.C. to attend dental school at Howard. So from 1972 through 1976, I attended dental school at Howard University. Graduated in 76, magna cum laude. I was elected to the National Honorary Society for Dentistry in the United States, and got a lot of, accomplishments and stuff. Did my resident in a hospital in Washington, D.C. And after that, I decided that I had to go back home to Jamaica to give back because I knew that there were shortage of dentists in Jamaica, and that was the reason why I went to dental school in the first place.
Mhm.
So in 1977, I went back, returned home to Jamaica, worked in a private practice on Melmac Avenue for a while, for about a year, and then signed up with the government of Jamaica to go work in the parish of Portland, which was where my family's from. My mother, father, everybody's from Portland. And since Portland is one of the most beautiful part of Jamaica, I chose to go back to Portland to work as a dentist with the government in the school system there. So I maintain a private practice and work with the government there. I did that for about 4 years, 4.5 years. And then I was offered a directorship for a clinic in the United States, a place named Grand Rapids, Michigan. They got in touch with me and offered me the job to be the director for a dental clinic there. So I was looking at it and I said, okay, let me go do that. And at the same time, let me go and get a Master of Public Health degree because I noticed that Jamaica needed, directive in public health in terms of medicine and dentistry, and especially dentistry, So I came back to the States, did the job in Grand Rapids as the director for the clinic for 2 years, and then moved back to the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area and went to Johns Hopkins University to do a Master of Public Health. So while I was in D.C. going to Johns Hopkins, I was involved in a private practice. And after I got finished at Johns Hopkins, I started working for the District of Columbia government, that's his D.C. government, Washington, D.C. government. And I worked with them for about 11 years. And then I was called and given a job to work at Children's National Hospital in Washington, D.C. And Children's National Hospital is one of the largest children's hospital in the entire United States. And what it was is that they had a very novel program. They're starting a program, a mobile dental oral health program. And this was a very novel thing. It was brand new, and I was assigned to start the program up. So we had a unit, a bus that looks like a touring bus, touring bus that entertainers use and that kind of stuff, which was equipped with 2 dental operatories with chairs, X-ray unit, had a driver, had dental assistants, couple of hygienists and everything. X-ray unit, everything was on board. It was like a dental office on wheels. And what it was is that in Washington, D.C. area, there were a lot of people who didn't have any access to oral health care, especially children. So we started out on a program. We embarked on this program, which was brand new in the United States. It wasn't new in the United States, but in this particular area, it was new. And we saw thousands and thousands of kids focusing on preventive care. The program was so successful that people from all over the United States would come to me so they could learn the model and, incorporate it in their particular programs, And I worked at Children's Hospital for almost 20 years until I retired, 7 years ago. So
Wow.
that was it.
So, and
As
that's
far
very,
as, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt you. So But so what have you, because I know that, I hear that you are still somewhat participating and contributing to the school.
Yes.
How are you doing that?
Well, financially, basically,
Uh-huh.
in a financial way. I do that for the most part. Whenever any kind of things need donations, I usually participate that kind of way. At one time, when I was living in Jamaica, me and Jumpy used to be involved in getting things for KC, gears, uniforms, that kind of stuff. Bicycles, so you could, they could have a raffle and that kind of stuff. So I've been contributing mostly financially, Yeah. I'm not involved with getting any scholarships anymore or getting people back into the school, but I'm trying to work on that end again to try and open that up, see if we can start that program again, Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Keys. It was a
Yeah.
pleasure. So, just to wrap up your story now, we're gonna ask three things of you. One, was there anyone that left a lasting impression on you? Whether it was a fellow student, a KC old boy, a teacher, coach, parent. That's one. Two, to wish KC happy 100, and three, to leave a positive message.
Yes, well, along my journey, there were a lot of people who came into my life who was, helped me a lot and who made me see life the way it should be seen, which is you live life, you trust God, and so on and so forth. The first person was Douglas Fortis. He was the first person I came in contact with. Lasting impression, the best headmaster that you could ever have, And there were teachers like my Spanish teacher, my math teacher, which was also my form teacher. She was a lady from England. My ballet teachers, chemistry teacher, the teacher who taught me zoology, Mr. Mackay. So along the way, the teachers, coaches who coached me in track and field, who coached me in football, Teddy McCook, George Thompson, so on and so forth. They were a big part of my life also. People I met in my classroom, Errol Lane, like I said, Jumpy Harris, Winston Davidson, it goes on and on, Derek Clark, too numerous to mention, because the thing about KC is that once you go through the gates at KC, you're going to be friends for life. It's going to be a loyal thing. You're going to always be friends forever and ever. You're always accepted, even though everybody have a nickname. We work as a team. Always, if you have a problem with a math, you always see a bunch of people sitting around a table working as a team. Okay, and so just about everybody I came in contact with at KC had a great impact on my life.
Yes. Yes.
And Mr. Goldsmith, because he and I were like brothers, we'd like, so, just about everyone. And for the students who are coming through right now, my thing is, the first thing
Before you give the student the message, just to wish KC the happy 100 there, Doc.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, of course, happy 100 centennial. I'm glad I'm part of it. I happen to be at KC through, divine intervention. I know it's divine intervention because everybody else went to Calabar except for me. Okay, so I give thanks for that. So with this 100 years, we're the newest kid on the block, but we are the greatest kid on the block. Okay, in such a short period of time, we have produced so many great scholars. I'm not talking about athletes, I'm talking about scholars.
Yes.
Okay, and athletes and everything that KC has been involved with, it has been great. So for 100 years, Bishop Gibson, he had the vision and the insight to set this up, which was set up first for poor Black boys who didn't have a chance to go to secondary school. And he had the foresight to see that, hey, this was part of the reparation from slavery from a long time. Poor Black kids now from KC is ruling the world. So, for 100 years, I congratulate the college, and I hope for the next 500 years, we set the standard just like we are setting. Okay?
Yeah, man. Positive message for the people them now.
Man.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And for the young guys coming up, you know, just love God and trust God because God give you life and take you where you are. Family is very important to you. Be humble, be patient, hard work. You have to put in a lot of hard work if you want to be successful. So you have to be diligent. You know, the people you pass on your way up, be respectful to them. Be respectful to seniors and old people because they have so much advice for you. Okay. And if you do that, you'll be successful. Okay. And I know anyone who goes through any of the gates at KC, whether it's North Street or Ellison Road, you know, we get that. And we know that. We understand that. That's why we're so good. So Fortis forever and always.
Thank you.
My gosh, my gosh, my gosh. The man who sang his way to KC in 1960 and ended up in 2E. Played his way to the cricket team by playing farm cricket. The footballer who known as the man can run. So guys, he played football, cricket, and track and field for the great institution, Kingston College. A part of the 64-65 Leonard Jerry team that we've heard of. And like you've heard it out of his own mouth, one of the first students to actually get a scholarship to go to the United States to play First Division League soccer. It is a pleasure, sir. I mean, you have left a permanent smile on my face this evening. Not sure I have my niece to kind of chip it in a little bit, but it's good to hear the stories connect. Like we said, you know, we talked to Neville, we hear some of these things, and he talked about you a lot. Leadership was one of the biggest things that he spoke about with you, and I can see it today. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. But you said it when KC was playing that Brazilian team, and as the leader, you pulled them together and you actually repeated the greatest motto that came out of the greatest institution. And we end all our podcast session with the greatest motto. And sir, as a KC old boy, it's the only time we ask you to join us. Everybody else who have gone through as staff members, etc., we don't ask them. We say if you want to join, you can. But as a KC old boy, you have no choice, and you've already started it. But here's the greatest motto that came out of the greatest institution. Fortis, Cadere, CEDRE, non-Potest. The brave may fall, but never yield. Thank you, Dr. Keys. We appreciate you. Walk good and continue to do the wonderful work. And like we say here on 1925 and beyond, see you at the next one, 100 Centenary. KC. Cheers.
Give thanks. Give thanks.